sat in the tiny HR office, trying to keep my heart from pounding right out of my chest. I had applied for the senior coordinator promotion, a job I'd earned twice over with 5 years of dedicated service. Across the cheap wood desk, Marla crossed her arms, a thin smirk pulling at her lips. She didn't even glance at my application folder. "We don't promote single mothers here," she said, her voice dry and cold. "It complicates things, scheduling, reliability, you know." I froze, the air leaving my lungs. The devastating cruelty of her words stunned me. Through the thin wall, I heard the subtle coughs of 2 male colleagues, shifting awkwardly in the next cubicle. I managed to stand, shaking, and walked out without a word. My eyes, blurred with unshed tears, fell on the security camera blinking above the doorframe. That entire horrible conversation had just been recorded. My mind snapped back 2 months. I was always the one pulling late nights, trying to juggle project deadlines with finding last-minute childcare after my ex-husband bailed on his custody visits. I was training new hires on complex systems I'd practically rebuilt, while my own career went nowhere. Marla kept giving me vague, frustrating excuses for passing me over for promotions, like not enough synergy, or lack of executive presence. It was maddening. One day, a senior manager, who was tired of seeing me misused, pulled me aside privately. He was nervous, glancing around, but he told me straight, I was being actively blocked from moving up. He wouldn't say who was doing it, but his eyes kept darting toward the HR department's corner. I knew then I couldn't just accept it. I decided I had to find out exactly who was tearing down my career. I didn't have to wait long for my answer. A few days later, I was walking past the break room when I heard Marla's sharp voice. She was complaining about me to another manager. I stopped dead behind the doorway, my hands already shaking. She called me unstable and a scheduling nightmare because of my son. It was all a complete lie. A coworker who had been eating lunch tried to defend me, pointing out how much money I'd saved the company last quarter. Marla shut him down with a cold, terrifying glare. She stated that my personal life bleeds into my work. I stood there listening, powerless. The worst part was realizing Marla had been using those lies to rewrite my official performance reviews before they went to the executive team. The next week, I politely confronted Marla about some strange discrepancies in my file. She played completely innocent, her eyes wide with feigned surprise. "Avery, I'm just following protocol," she chirped, before warning me to watch my tone in the future. Later that day, she sent an email to my department manager, subtly implying I had missed a crucial deadline I had actually completed a day early. I quickly produced the time-stamped proof, but my manager just looked defeated and seemed nervous to challenge Marla. It was clear HR had too much power. That's when I decided to start saving everything. I created a separate folder on my personal drive and began copying every email, every message, and every file with a timestamp to protect myself from further manipulation. Just as the gaslighting was getting worse, an unexpected ally appeared. Bryn, a temp worker who had been recently assigned to our department, confided in me during a quiet afternoon. She was only there for a month, helping with file organization, but she had a history with Marla. Bryn told me, shaking her head, that she too had been mistreated by Marla at her previous job. She said Marla had a reputation for getting rid of people she didn't like. "People like Marla always slip eventually," Bryn hinted, looking around to make sure we were alone. I leaned in, my hope rising for the first time in weeks. Bryn said she knew something that could help me, something she had overheard about Marla's own shady dealings at her last company. Bryn's information became a crucial puzzle piece. She reported seeing Marla meeting privately in the abandoned storage room with Mark, a disgruntled coworker who had always resented my success. Mark was known for complaining about me to anyone who would listen. 2 weeks after Bryn saw them together, Mark suddenly got the promotion I had applied for months earlier. It was a slap in the face. Later that day, I was passing the HR printer when I saw a confidential memo mistakenly left on the tray. It was slightly crumpled, but the header was clearly visible, and it had my name plastered all over it in bold, official font. My heart leaped into my throat. The memo was worse than I could have imagined. It outlined a completely false narrative about me. I was emotionally volatile, constantly late, and unreliable due to childcare constraints. Each bullet point was a blatant, calculated lie meant to destroy my reputation and block any future advancement. I felt a sickening gut punch, seeing my hard work reduced to malicious gossip. The document was a blueprint for character assassination. As I stood there, reeling, I quickly snapped a photo of the memo with my phone. Just as the camera clicked, Marla rushed up to the printer, snatching the paper away with a furious, panicked expression, confirming its devastating importance. Back to the day of Marla's terrible comment, I went home and immediately created a new folder on my computer labeled Insurance. I sat down and started the work that would free me. I had memorized the exact timestamp of the HR office camera footage. The next day, I filed a request with the IT department for door footage from that time slot, claiming I had lost my security badge near Marla's office and needed to verify when I last saw it. IT, without questioning the request, sent me the video file. I uploaded it into my insurance folder. I put on my headphones and the audio recording was crystal clear. We don't promote single mothers here, it complicates things. If you are enjoying the story, do well to like and subscribe for more. Back to the story. After uploading the video, the weight of everything, the exhaustion, the lies, the sheer injustice, finally broke me. I collapsed in the kitchen, sobbing uncontrollably. My son Alex, who was 8, rushed over to me. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just wrapped his small arms around my neck. "Mom," he whispered fiercely, "you're the strongest person I know." His simple, honest belief in me was the catalyst. Something inside me snapped into focus. I realized I couldn't spend another day working for a company that tolerated such malice. I dried my tears, the raw resolve hardening in my chest. I vowed to leave the company, but not before I made sure every single person, especially Marla, knew the devastating truth about her actions. The very next day, I began interviewing quietly, using my lunch breaks to take video calls in my car in the parking garage. The process was exhausting but necessary. One company, a small tech firm with a great reputation, was extremely interested in my operational expertise. They wanted to see a major project I had successfully led 18 months ago. I remembered, with a surge of anger, how Marla had erased my name from that project's public documentation and replaced it with a generic department effort title. I knew I couldn't just hand over a document that didn't credit me. I had to dig up the old files and prove, undeniably, that the project's success was mine alone. My meticulous habit of saving everything finally paid off. I spent a late night sifting through archived folders on a backup drive. I finally found an older, untainted version of the successful project's master file. Right there on the cover sheet, my name was listed clearly as the lead coordinator. Victory! As a bonus, I found older versions of my performance reviews. I compared them to the ones Marla had shown me. The differences were stark, proving she had digitally altered them to downplay my achievements. Then a file marked draft, not approved, caught my attention. It contained even more defamatory and cruel remarks about my character, far worse than the memo I had photographed. The universe seemed to be aligning the pieces for me. A few days later, Mr. Vance, a senior vice president who worked 2 floors up, visited our department unexpectedly. He asked about the very project I had just archived. Marla, scrambling, tried to interject and take credit, using her usual vague buzzwords. I waited for her to finish, then answered Mr. Vance calmly with precise dates, cost-saving specifics, and a thorough understanding of the technical details. He looked intrigued, his eyes flicking between me and a clearly flustered Marla. He cut her off abruptly. He then leaned toward me, a quiet intensity in his gaze. He asked me to schedule a private meeting with him the following week. The meeting with Mr. Vance was held in his secure corner office. I brought my meticulously organized folder, containing the documents proving my contributions and the clear discrepancies in my performance evaluations. He looked shocked as he read through the evidence. He admitted that others had complained about HR's practices and Marla's management style, but no one had ever provided concrete proof before. The lack of evidence had always protected her. His face darkened as he realized the depth of the deception. He then looked up, his tone serious, and told me to keep collecting anything unusual. He clearly intended to build a case, and I was his key witness. Marla must have sensed the shift in the air, because she struck back almost immediately. The day after my meeting with the VP, she put me on a ridiculous performance improvement plan, PIP. The document was filled with fabricated claims about low productivity and poor communication, all of which were directly contradicted by my high client satisfaction scores. It was clearly retaliatory and designed to push me out. I stayed completely calm, taking the PIP without argument, and noted the date and time of the delivery. Later that afternoon, Bryn sent me a crucial screenshot. It was from a private Slack chat where Marla was complaining about problem employees, and specifically named me, detailing her plan to make me quit. Marla wasn't done yet. She called a forced team meeting, supposedly to address concerns about professionalism across the department. She used the meeting to subtly humiliate me, asking pointed questions about work I hadn't even been assigned. It was an obvious power play. But this time something felt different. Co-workers looked uncomfortable and shifted in their seats. No one laughed at Marla's passive-aggressive jokes. They were starting to see her malice, especially after I started delegating tasks she had secretly dumped on me. As the meeting broke up, one of my teammates, a woman named Carla, slipped me a small, folded piece of paper. The note simply read, "I'll talk if you need me." The tide was turning. My hard work during lunch breaks paid off. I landed a promising second interview with the tech company I wanted to join. They were thoroughly impressed by my poise, my clear project presentation, and the comprehensive archive of my successful work. They spent half an hour talking about their flexible schedules and my son. They were everything my current job was not. The interview ended on a high note, but then came the inevitable request that made my stomach drop. They needed references, specifically someone from my current job who could confirm my senior-level capabilities. My mind raced. Marla could easily give a false, malicious reference and sabotage the entire process. The panic was real, but I remembered my ally. I immediately sent a private, encrypted message to Mr. Vance, explaining the situation and my need for a credible, high-level reference. I explained that Marla would likely give a false review if asked. He wrote back instantly. "I'd be honored, Avery," he replied without any hesitation. "I'll let them know you're a cornerstone employee we tried very hard to keep." His support was the biggest validation I had received in 5 years. A day later, I received an email from the new company. The subject line made my breath catch. "We'd like to discuss an offer." I knew I was finally free. Marla, seemingly noticing my sudden calm and composure, grew increasingly paranoid. She began scheduling surprise visits to my desk, trying to catch me making a mistake. Her paranoia spiked when I showed no fear. She scheduled a surprise documentation review of my active project files, hoping to find a single missing form or error that she could use to fire me under the guise of the PIP. I passed the review flawlessly. Every file was in order, every timestamp correct. I didn't even sweat. Marla stormed out of the department, her face visibly rattled and red with frustration. She realized she couldn't touch me professionally, but she had no idea why I was suddenly untouchable. The email arrived with a final job offer. Excellent pay, a senior title, completely flexible hours, and remote work options. Accepted immediately. The relief was immense, but the quiet satisfaction was greater. Now I was free. I was protected. I could expose the truth without fearing the retaliation she had planned. I typed up my resignation letter, printed it out, and walked directly to Marla's office. I handed it to her, my expression calm and completely devoid of emotion. Her face went sheet white as she read the single, short paragraph stating my immediate departure. The hunter had become the hunted. The next day, I had my official exit interview, which was held in the large conference room with both Mr. Vance and Marla in attendance. I sat at the table and began to speak. I calmly presented my insurance folder. I played the HR office video from the security camera first. Marla's face turned scarlet as her cruel words echoed in the silence of the room. I then showed the edited evaluations, the private Slack screenshots Bryn had sent, and the project files proving her sabotage. Marla tried to interrupt, screaming that the evidence was faked. Mr. Vance silenced her with a single furious gesture of his hand. He then looked at me, his voice tight with controlled anger, and said, "Avery, please wait outside." I sat in the lobby, shaking from the adrenaline. The conference room door was closed, but Marla's voice could be heard arguing loudly and hysterically inside. I saw a security guard approach the door, a serious expression on his face, waiting to be called in. Employees walking by stared, their eyes wide and stunned. I knew the truth was spreading like wildfire. After about 20 minutes of silence, the phone in the lobby rang. It was Mr. Vance's assistant. "Mr. Vance needs you back in the room, Avery." My heart pounded, but I knew I had won. I walked back in. Marla was gone. Mr. Vance looked exhausted but resolute. He informed me that an official internal investigation would immediately proceed based on the irrefutable evidence I had provided. I went back to my department to pack my desk. As I gathered my personal items, co-workers quietly approached me, their voices low. Carla gave me a genuine hug, thanking me for having the courage to speak up. The entire department was buzzing with the news. Just as I was about to leave, Bryn, the temp worker, rushed to my desk, her eyes wide with excitement. She had one last piece of explosive information she'd just found while organizing files. Bryn revealed that Marla hadn't just been petty and malicious. She had committed outright fraud. Marla had been quietly misappropriating training funds for almost a year and blaming the resulting shortages on departmental overspending. Bryn showed me detailed receipts and financial timestamps she'd organized during her temp assignment that proved Marla had diverted thousands of dollars. It was the final nail in the coffin. I immediately forwarded the sensitive documents and screenshots to Mr. Vance's private email, sending them from my personal phone before leaving the premises for good. The next morning, HR leadership, wearing expensive, serious suits, quietly arrived on site well before the standard 9 a.m. start time. I arrived at my former office building later that morning to return my laptop and badge, walking past the lobby coffee shop. I watched through the glass as the downfall unfolded. Marla was being escorted out by 2 senior managers and a security guard. She was carrying a small cardboard box filled with desk trinkets. Her face was red, streaked with tears, and completely defeated. She pleaded hysterically, loud enough for half the lobby to hear. "You need me. This place will collapse without me." The senior manager, Mr. Vance, didn't even look at her. As she passed through the glass doors, Marla suddenly locked eyes with me across the lobby. Her look was pure venom and disbelief. I started my new job the following week. It was remote, the work was challenging, and I was treated with immediate respect and appreciation. My new boss called me a cornerstone hire. My life was simpler, my son was happier, and the stress melted away. 2 months later, I received a fascinating update. Marla, desperate for work, had applied to my new company, but she was rejected instantly after the corporate background check pulled up the details of the internal investigation report from her former employer. Poetic justice. I closed my work laptop early that afternoon, smiled, and picked up Alex from school early. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks quietly, holding a little boy's hand, finally free.